Hi everybody. I don't know how many of you are just like me. Let me move my chair. And just got done watching Chris McDonough's Interview Room, but that was a doozy whopper. I actually got super irritated while listening to the phone call and had to actually calm myself down because there were so many red flags that I heard in the phone call between Mary and Dawn that sent me immediately flashback to my days as a supervising officer when I actually supervised sex offenders. But I just wanted to bring some information to you all so you can understand this from a different point of view, because a lot of people don't understand sex offenders in general, how people look at them, how they're supervised, how people categorize them, and how they kind of manipulate and work and do what they do to their victims. So there are normally three types. There are people that offend against adults, people that offend against children, and then people that have more of a fetish or a pedophilia offense dynamic. Then normally they are pretty clean cut into these specific categories and they don't overlap, but every once in a while you will find someone who overlaps. So you see someone who may have a fetish for pedophilia also may actually go into offense against adults and perform violent attacks on women and rape. That would be someone that is a polymorphous perverse offender. They kind of fall into the polymorphous perverse group. So they have more than one risk, basically. If you were doing a risk assessment against this offender that you had on supervision, they would be high risk. Now, when you start looking at the offenses themselves, especially when you're looking at the pattern in offense, you want to look at the age of the victims. You want to look at the mechanism that they use for offending, and you want to see if they're grooming or if it's a spontaneous, advantageous, opportunistic event. The thing is for me, I think this kind of is a narcissist that also probably has some kind of this is a narcissist who has a history of sex offense against prepubescent children and uses psychological coercion. And for all the times during the phone call he says, I did not use force. She initiated this. Coercion is force. Coercion is force. Playing house, playing a game, manipulating the mind of a child, manipulating the environment so that the child feels coerced to play along, making the child not understand that what is occurring is wrong, making it a game, making it a secret, making it something that you know it is not, even at the age of 12 or 13. That is coercion, that is force. And when you get a narcissist that has done this to somebody, when they start grooming their person, they do that by claiming them, and that is by repetitious petting, boosting the ego, applying additional energy or additional giving them more affection, more attention, and kind of making yourself somebody that they go to as somebody that is going to give that energy, give that attention, give that interaction that they may be lacking somewhere. So they're probably going to look for a child that is lacking in one of those regards. And then as soon as they build that trust bond, or they build that affection level, or they build that control mechanism they have over that child, because that child thinks that they get up every morning and crap out the sun and that they adore them, then they start slowly breaking the child down. And they start telling the child, you can't tell or you'll be selfish. You can't tell on me this is a secret or you'll hurt me. You're evil if you tell on me. They start to break it down and turn it against them. and they turn the victim that is completely blameless in this regard, especially as a 5 to 7-year-old child. They try to turn the victim into the perpetrator. So they completely try to do a role reversal with their victim. And they do it through that grooming and that entire process of claiming, getting the ego going. And then when they get that devotion, they flip it. If you go against someone who has done this, if you speak up, if you try to break the cycle, or you try to stop in any way, defend yourself or stop an incident, you are going to get rage. That is the go-to, rage. And if you are then able to go and have a normal life, a normal relationship with someone else, a normal adulthood, if it's someone that has really been aggressively violent towards you for a number of years while you were in the formative years, prepubescent, and then during puberty, and then they watched you go on into an adult, you're going to have somebody that's going to have a very dark jealousy about you. And they're going to be jealous about anything that you've accomplished with your life, and they are going to have a viciousness towards you that you are not going to be able to understand and make sense of, because there's no making sense of it, because it's based in the sexual offenses and the psychology behind their coercion and their grooming and their issues with appropriate attention, devotion, adoration, love. One of the things that stood out to me during this phone call is that he kept saying, she is not innocent, she initiated it. There is no way in heck that a 5-year-old child can initiate anything sexual. They may replay behaviors they've seen. They may accidentally place themselves on somebody's body in an attempt to climb onto them in their lap, get attention, riding the motorcycle places them in an inappropriate placement against somebody. But this child does not know what that is doing to the other person, and the other person that knows what it is doing has the burden to stop the behavior, because they're the elder person the person with the knowledge, the social knowledge, the understanding of societal expectations and right and wrong, to know to stop that engagement behavior because it is wrong. So pawning it off on the victim, especially if the victim is so young that they can't understand at all what they're doing, it just shows a different level to the monstrosity that is going on here. And he kept saying, she's the evil one. If she really cared about Summer and my kids, she wouldn't be doing this to me. This whole diversion tactic, this deflection tactic, is you're not just hurting me, you're hurting my family, you're hurting my kids, you're going to cause my kids to be in foster care. This is just his control, coercion tactics that he used as a younger man, that he's trying to use now. But the interesting thing is now, since women are starting to talk about this and starting to press charges, it's not working as well. So we're seeing him go to the jealousy and the rage. And so we can tell that he's having a little bit of a breakdown. We can tell that he's breaking down. We can tell that the cookie is crumbling, and that his power, his ego, and the little fortress he has built around his deviant behavior is breaking down. Now, what does this mean? I mean it, I fully think it means he's going to be more dangerous than ever. And what irritates me is he keeps saying, she thinks I would do this to my own child. And if I could say anything straight to Dawn, I would say, you have just sat there and justified your sexually deviant behavior against a 5-year-old child, stating it was not your fault. You should bear no consequences because she initiated it. It was all her idea, and you were just along for the ride, and you were a young man that couldn't control the situation. So if someone just like you, if you have nothing to do with someone who's just disappears, but someone just like you took your daughter, how can you then hold them accountable if you can't hold yourself accountable? So now we wait to see if the women do press charges and see where this goes. I believe that he is a polymorphous reverse group offender. I believe he takes advantage. He's an opportunistic predator. And I believe that while he may have gaps in his life where he has not participated in this, I believe that it is an underlying condition that he has never rectified and he has never learned how to handle, and that he has learned how to hide it very well because of the victims he chooses. My perspective, my opinion based on the phone call, but we know by the phone call that he's admitting to the behavior. We know now he has, what, 5 or 6 victims, all prepubescent or right around puberty, which places him in a high-risk category to be a repetitious or repeat offender. It was a disturbing interview. Very disturbing interview. And he is saying, I don't believe, no, there's nothing I'm going to do. I was a child too. No, the age gap there was so great that the state should probably go ahead and pick it up and prosecute. Whether the victim wants to play a big part or not, the state should go ahead and pick up and prosecute once they get a statement. But if he has 2 to 4 to 5 victims come forward and they do, if they do not do consecutive sentences, well, they may not have, I don't know, he could be spending a lot of time in jail, in prison. There is no statute of limitations on sexual offenses. You should be aware of that. And you can be charged as an adult, as a juvenile, if your behavior was heinous enough that you are shown to be a predatory risk to people around you. And what concerns me is he's bounced through multiple other states where this behavior could have continued, but we don't know because victims may not be brave enough to come forward or may not understand that this is something that he did multiple times and they can jump in on the bravery train and tell their story too. So I think there's a whole lot more to this than just what we're seeing, and this is going to be a story that is going to be one that by the time it closes, and we probably won't ever get full closure, but we'll get enough to understand that somebody was punished. But it's going to be one of those that is going to haunt the people of East Tennessee for a long, long time to come. Women, listen to that phone call. Listen to how he tries to talk that woman back into a corner and turn her into agreeing with him and making him into the victim. Talk to your little girls. Prepare them for predators. Prepare them for men that look at them like they're a dessert plate. Tell them that when they go to community functions as younger women, that they place themselves by an exit. They know where 2 other exits are. They know where security or somebody is. These are all things you need to profile when you go into a community event, and that they have at least 3 other friends with them, and if something happens as an emergency, they have a meeting place outside. These are all things that you need to you need to train your daughter. Train your daughter about pressure points. Train your daughter to use a firearm. Train your daughter to understand that there are dangers. There are dangers. That parade around as family members, friends, and trusted confidants. And we need to train them to be able to know the difference. That was a doozy of a phone call. That one makes me feel even worse about this case now. All is out.